against Cody Shoemaker playing black-white mid-range. So we're going to watch these two decks do battle here.
Absolutely. A pretty classic matchup here in Standard. Confirm Shoemaker or Shoemaker?
So it's going to be, pretty classic. I mean, Jared's splash is a little bit different. He's got Water Graves and Temple of Deceits this go around. But besides that, I mean, we've seen him play this deck normally with a splash of red, but this time with a splash of blue. Unfortunately for him, he's unable to draw in this round, even though he did win the last one. He probably thought that was a winning in.
For sure. This is, black-white mid-range to me initially kind of appeared as a response to the dominance of Black Devotion. The most easy adaptation to make was simply, add some white, add some Blood Barons, which in a Black Devotion mirror match is about as good as it gets. Now, because of additional content, because of cards like Banishing Light, because of Caves of Koilos, I believe this deck is just legitimate in its own right. It is no longer just a response to Black Devotion, but rather just an independently powerful, easy to justify deck.
We're going to see who wins here. I mean, Jared's deck doesn't really splash blue for really anything.
Well, Jared, it's pretty interesting. I suspect his deck building philosophy is he wants some temples in his list anyway. Even if it was just playing mono black, he probably would have some temples. At that point, what's the cost of adding a couple watery graves? Significant in some matchups, not significant in others. Then what's the upside of the sideboard cards you get as a result of this? 2 negates to me seems like very high upside in the Esper matchup, possibly against Jund Planeswalkers as well.
Yeah, his other splash there is just for the Singleton Notion Thief, so it's a very light splash. It also makes his Nightfall Specters a little bit better too.
Yeah,
you have to count that.
Jared is this deck list is very much a loud declaration that he does not believe there's going to be many beatdown decks in this field.
Yeah,
he's splashing blue. He has no Farigous Cures in his sideboard, no Drown in Sorrows. He is, I think, against a deck like Rabble Red, he's way behind what Black Devotion typically is. But the upshot is that his control matchups are probably much better.
Well, 7 cards coming here for the Rookie of the Year on the professional circuit. We'll see who's going to be on the play here between Boettcher and Shoemaker. So we do have a little bit of conversation back and forth before things will be underway here. Again, round 10 of 10 will be underway shortly. We'll come back tomorrow morning for our elimination rounds.
Yeah. This could be another awesome thing for Jared to cement his year here. Besides Rookie of the Year would be invite to the Players' Championship. And I think that one of the 8 at-large bids is definitely in play.
Oh, yeah. With the kind of season that he's had, top 8 at both invitationals so far.
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if we don't see him at the end of the year. And it looks like Cody is going to send his hand back, not what he was looking for.
Yeah, Jared on 6 already and Cody going down to 5.
I don't want to lock Jared in here, but he is pretty close already. Again, 2 invitational top 8s, a handful of Open Series top 8s as well.
Thing is, it's really hard to say anyone's a lock because it takes so little for someone to push themselves in the thick of things.
Agreed.
If you've been going to a couple opens, here and there, you hit this point where you're at, maybe 40 points, maybe you have a top 8 here or there. One really good weekend, one deep run in the Invitational, and you're in the mix. It does not take much.
You throw some IQs, stuff like that.
I mean, what's the point total we're looking at to qualify for the Players' Championship? Not to speculate too much, but we're probably, for one of the at-large bids at the end of the year, probably in the 150, 160, 170 territory.
Those are actually the exact numbers I was thinking of.
We're in that range. That's not insurmountable, even if you get off to a fairly late start in 2014.
Yeah, the really fun thing is going to be when, we have the Invitational up in Seattle, and people are, really punching their bids there.
That's going to be
a very competitive tournament.
That tournament's going to be maybe actually kind of annoying for us to cover because there's going to be so many balls in the air for the 8 at-large bids.
Yeah.
We could be going in, we had to, we have our meeting the day before the tournament where there's 18 people we have to watch because those are the people that are technically in play.
And there will be shifts throughout the day.
Yeah.
About what's going to be taking place. So again, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch that particular tournament, see who does work their way towards the at-large bids. Can't forget too, the winner of the tournament will qualify for the Players' Championship as well. So it'll get a little feisty. Gonna be looking forward to that one. You'll look forward to the Invitational that's taking place in just a couple weeks from now in Jersey.
In Jersey?
Stop. I should just stop bringing it up. In your hometown. Yes.
Not quite.
Close enough.
It's in my home county. I think the tournament may technically be in Middlesex County, which is one county over.
It's literally all the same to me.
Next.
It's just Jersey.
Yeah.
It's dirty Jersey. Does anybody ever call it that?
I get that a lot, but they haven't been where I'm from.
A Temple of Deceit to start things off here for Boettcher. You saw Caves over there for Cody, and now here's a Thoughtseize. So it's going to be an Elspeth, along with an Ozadat, a Blood Baron, a Banishing Light, and a Plains. So
that's a rough hand.
Yeah, not the best mulligan hand, but you know, the thing is, I don't think you can mulligan to 5 in this matchup, but this is kind of almost like a mulligan to 5.
Oh no, Cody's already on 5. This would have been a mulligan to 4.
Oh, okay, never mind. I take it all back.
Yeah, he's got to keep this, but this is a mess.
I've seen better. That's for sure. Blood Baron feels like an easy selection.
Well,
it doesn't mean it's correct, though.
Jared could also just take Banishing Light out of his hand and leave him with nothing that can be cast for numerous turns.
He's going to Thoughtseize again.
Or you can do both.
Yeah.
Why limit yourself to one when you can just do both?
Cody draws a card. He draws a Thoughtseize. There's the Plains. He'll take 3 to cast this. 1 from the Caves, 2 from the Thoughtseize itself. Let's see what Boettcher has over there. A Sign in Blood, a Devour Flesh, and a Mutavault. I assume you got to take the Sign, right?
Yep. Gives you
I would think.
Well, it gives you a lot of time to draw another discard spell. You cannot let, with you on 5 cards, Jared on 6, it's a resource-light game. All these Thoughtseize have been thrown around. You just can't let Jared Sign in Blood. You can't let it happen.
Jared's draw was a copy of Desecration Demon. Now here's a Pack Rat. That's a pretty good Devour Flesh target, so there that goes. Shoemaker will gain a little bit of life here. Boettcher, timely 4th land for the Demon as he does rub his hands together. It's a Caves, and I believe a passing of the turn. We're going to go reaching for the Mutavault, bash across here for 8, and Demon does not take long to get the job done, and now there's a Pack Rat.
Pretty easy game.
It's not hard for Jared Boettcher, as there's a Godless Shrine. Got to pass the turn back. Fire up the old Mutavault, come across here. And that is going to do it. Just like that, Jared Boettcher is going to win game number 1 here over Cody Shoemaker. Black-Blue Devotion up a game over Black-White Midrange.
Rookie of the Year, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, hey, you run like that, winning gets pretty easy.
Easy stuff. Easy stuff.
Let's time to take a look at the sideboards here. You got Cody's in front of you. What does he have to help him?
He's got an Erebos, God of the Dead, an Underworld Connections, 3 in the main, then 1 more on the board. 3 copies of Duress, 3 Doomblade, 2 Sin Collector, a DSI, 2 Last Breath, 2 Drown in Sorrow. I do like the Duresses, the Underworld Connections, the Erebos, God of the Dead, the Sin Collectors, the normal anti-control stuff. Erebos is particularly good in this matchup, I feel like.
Other side of things here for Boettcher, there's a Notion Thief, an Underworld Connections, 2 Negate, 2 Erebos, God of the Dead, 3 Doomblade, 3 Lifebane Zombie, 3 copies of Duress. I expect to see, as usual, the Duresses and the Erebos come in. That's 5, 6 for Underworld Connections. And I think a discussion could be had about the 2 Negates. Spell 7 and 8.
Yeah, it is close. Almost worth bringing in here. I think the presence of so many discard spells means it's hard to play with things that are reactive and that you can't always cast, and that your opponent gets a lot of value from knowing about. Yeah. So, if it wasn't a Negate Thoughtseize matchup, it's not like there's not enough spells in Cody's deck to negate. It's more of other factors, I think, that make it pretty poorly suited for the matchup.
Yeah, I feel like you're right. It's a pretty poor top deck. I will say that. And the most important cards in this matchup are likely creatures, right? Ozadat, Blood Baron.
Blood Baron especially.
Pack Rat.
Yep.
At depending on the game, of course, and the situation. If you top deck a Negate and they top deck the creature, well, what are you even doing?
Not very much.
That's kind of how it feels, at least to me.
And information in this matchup matters so much too. Players are going to be working with full information a lot of the time because of the Duresses and Thoughtseizes. So it's a pretty big cost to have something that's narrow and easy to play around and valuable to know about and all that kind of stuff.
Now, of course, I was on my break last round. How did the match between Boettcher and Lethia go?
It was close. I mean, it was definitely a competitive matchup. Jared is probably on the low side of action for the Blue Devotion matchup.
Okay.
Like against a typical mono black Devotion list. He's splashing a color for cards he's not playing. That's a big cost, of course. And he doesn't really have a lot in the way of removal. He's not as redundant as the black lists typically are. The matchup I still feel is positive for him because I think Black Devotion has a pretty substantial edge against Blue Devotion.
Okay.
And he was able to take down a pretty close match.
Okay. I know it's a close one. It always has been.
Yeah.
And 2 really, really good players going to battle there, too.
And Black Devotion can definitely lose the games, That for sure can happen. But I think more often than not, Black Devotion's got a pretty big edge.
To you in this standard format, is there a best deck?
Is there a best deck? I think that from a week-to-week situation, there can be a best deck.
Okay.
I think that, we haven't had really a month of the same thing happening since Theros and maybe early Born of the Gods standard.
It feels like, when you take a look at the standard format, it feels like the Black Devotion decks are the best. But, then, some weeks come around where it's Jund Monsters, it's Mono Blue Devotion, it's Revelation Strategies, the Invitational in Season 2. Tom destroyed that tournament with Bus Light. He destroyed everyone.
Yeah, there's a lot of room for flexibility. I mean, Jared Boettcher's list of Black Devotion, I mean, he's a game away from making the elimination rounds. He's a great deck builder and a wonderful player. Trust me, I'd be happy playing against this thing all day long with all manners of red aggro lists.
Yeah.
I mean, he's pretty close to punting those matchups away. The upshot is that he gets a lot of, power in other matchups, especially against Sphinx's Revelation strategies. So that's kind of the call that he's making here. And even within a Black Devotion shell, he is making a declaration about what matchups he thinks are going to be prevalent. And he's changing, the outcome of the way his games are going to play. So it's not like it's the same 60 cards over and over again. There is room for customization, even inside of something as stock as Black Devotion. And we've actually seen, we see blue a splash here. Jared's played a lot of the red splash. The green splash has been all over the place, especially when Temple of Malady was first printed. And now black-white mid-range, which is kind of a Black Devotion derivative, is also one of the most popular decks, maybe the most popular deck in the format right now. So even inside of Black Devotion, there's 5 distinct takes on it. Mono black and then all 4 colors seeing some sort of splash.
That's true. It wouldn't surprise me at all, if we do see maybe red do well again here in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, this list that Jared is bringing to the table, ban, this is not going to be good against a beatdown deck.
Well, it looks like he's more geared towards maybe because Flock did win the Pro Tour.
No, I think that Jared was expecting a lot of Revelation strategies this weekend.
And this might be the best way to go about trying to beat that. I mean, the blue splash makes your Nightveil Specters better against that deck. He's got 3 connections to the main, the 4th one in the board, a couple copies in the gate. He's got that singleton Notion Thief and then 3 Duresses. Can't forget the 2 Erebos as well. He's got to be very well positioned against that deck.
Yeah, he's bringing as much as one can really reasonably expect. The reason that he has 3 Duresses in the sideboard, he has 1 in the main deck.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
On top of 2 Ereboses in the sideboard, sometimes you see 1 there. A Notion Thief, 2 negates. I mean, he is coming at Revelation this weekend, that's for sure.
Looks like Boettcher was happy to keep. Shoemaker's going to be on the play, and there's an Urborg plus the Thoughtseize to start. So you're going to see a hand of Mutavault and a Swamp. We're also going to see 2 Duress, a Devour Flesh, a Pack Rat, and a Nightveil Spectre. That Urborg is important.
Yeah.
Making that Mutavault Swamp is a pretty big deal, but you can also see Shoemaker's hand now. He's got 2 Mutavaults in his hand, so Urborg is important for him as well.
I assumed when Urborg got printed that it was just a freebie in Black Devotion. Now watching it on camera, I mean, I think 1 is still correct, but it's a pretty big cost.
Yeah, he can even lead off with Mutavault here because there's an Urborg in play. He's going to take the Banishing Light. You're going to see him have Erebos and just lands over there for Shoemaker. So Shoemaker's hand is actually kind of Thoughtseize proof. Duress proof.
Yes.
Excuse me, no hand is Thoughtseize proof, but Duress proof. And, Thoughtseize isn't the greatest against his hand. It's certainly fine because Erebos is a nice weapon in this matchup, but...
Well, I think Cody's in a lot of trouble if Jared draws Thoughtseize here because his hand has nothing else going on.
Maybe some Mutavault chip shots, that's really about it. You see Shoemaker's going to write down the cards over there in Boettcher's hand. Boettcher says, here's my grip, just in case you missed it the first time. So Shoemaker draws a card. It's another copy of Banishing Light. 1 was already discarded, so that's an answer. There's a Mutavault. Pass the turn back over to Boettcher. Boettcher draws a Temple, so he's going to put that into play. Take a look.
I almost wonder if it's correct for Cody to lead off with Caves of Koilos into the Thoughtseize there. Is the 1 point of damage worth giving Jared access to an Urborg and what that may do to his hand? I don't know over the long term what's the better play, but it feels like it's at least a decision.
There's the other Duress. Banishing Light was the draw, so he's going to look at the same stuff.
Jared, pretty fortunate to hit something there.
Yeah. Take a draw. That's a Swamp. You serve up the old Mutavault here. Get you for 2. It's a tie game now at 18-18.
I think the reason that Jared duressed that turn was because he's going to untap and cast Nightveil, so he may not have a window to cast this duress for the rest of the game.
Basically, I imagine that his man is tied up for the rest of the game, right?
Right. So, hope that there's something there, and he was fortunate enough to hit.
Players will slam down threats. Nightveil for Boettcher, Erebos for Shoemaker. Here comes Nightveil. Trigger. That's a good Magic card. It's a Pack Rat. What Boettcher did not find, I believe, is the 4th land. So he's got a couple copies of Underworld Connections in his hand. He has a Pack Rat that he can cast from the Spectre. And he's just going to go with the Pack Rat and leave up Mutavault.
I really like casting Pack Rat there from Jared. You got to get while the getting's good there. Your Night Veil might die. You don't want to give up on that value. And casting a Pack Rat here is arguably better than adding connections to his board anyway.
How do we like this play? Activate the old Erebos right now. There's a lot of cards I think that Shoemaker could draw that he can't cast. And I could see maybe being better off just activating Erebos on the end of turn.
I think he's he's good to go because of the Urborg. I wouldn't have tapped the caves necessarily. I guess he has a cave left over in his hand, but because of the Urborg, he can kind of cast whatever he finds.
Okay. Erebos to draw here for Boettcher, but still looking for another land. He'll serve in here for 3. Shoemaker's going to go down to 11. We got a Spectre trigger. That's a swamp. There's the land he's looking for. Boy, is Night Veil Spectre great in the mirror.
Oh, yeah.
It's hit twice. It's generated a lot of value. It may not need to hit ever again.
I'm going to miss Night Veil Spectre rotating out. That's one of my favorite cards in Standard.
I like that card a lot. It goes in a lot of different decks.
Ton of variance, makes the games play way differently from each other from game to game. A lot of interesting decisions revolving around it. Informs a lot of different lands you want to play. I don't know. It's sweet. Does not play the same way from game to game.
This is a Desecration Demon. So that's going to come into play. I don't know if that's going to be long for this world, though. Devour Flesh sure does look good in this spot. I guess there's a Mutavault to be sacrificed, though.
Yeah, Cody has a bit of protection at this point. I mean, he has multiple Mutavaults in play.
I think Boettcher's he's looking at 2 copies of Devour Flesh. So this is actually kind of an interesting spot here. Okay, Cody says, all right, I'm going to activate my Mutavault, sacrifice this. Boettcher may just say, okay, I'm going to cast another Devour Flesh. And then it acts as 2 Stone Rains.
Which is not bad against an opponent who has Erebos in play.
Yeah, he might be okay with that. And he's not going to gain any life, of course, because there's an Erebos in play. And you have to imagine a player of Boettcher's caliber did not miss that interaction with the Mutavault and Devour Flush.
Yeah, that seems like not a bad spot to cast these Devour Flushes, though.
It feels like to me if you're going to cast one, you're going to cast both.
Well, there is still the hope that Cody could get sloppy or tap out for something, and then you can catch the demon, but it seems unlikely to me.
So there goes the other one. The demon is still here, standing tall. And Boettcher is just going to pass the turn back. So not a bad turn from Jared, but not the best turn I've ever seen. Demon trigger is going to be placed onto the stack. Things are getting a little interesting in this game now. So here's an attack. Now there's a land, there's a backup demon. And now Erebos is on. It's not both players have an Erebos kind of staring at each other. But Boettcher with a pretty big draw there and 3rd copy of Devour Flesh.
That is excellent right here.
Truth be told, we might see Cody actually sacrifice his copy of Erebos here. I think that's very realistic, Patrick.
Yep.
He could sacrifice his tapped Desecration Demon. That's something he could certainly do. It looks like something he's going to do, which is going to shut Erebos off. That's a really interesting turn, though. He was pretty hasty on what he wanted to sacrifice.
Yeah, it feels like Erebos may be the weak link right now. I mean, it's a lot of upkeep for Cody to have Devotion turned on.
This will be a Duress. That's Swamp. So Boettcher's going to record that information. He'll activate Mutavault to shut that down. So 5, 6, 7, 8 points of damage. There's a Blood Baron. And Boettcher's just going to pass the turn back. It's 3 to 10. Didn't get a great look at what the draw was. It's a Thoughtseize.
Yeah, I really like taking those spots to cut out a huge chunk of your opponent's life total in the mirror match or in similar matchups between Erebos, Thoughtseize, Underworld Connections, Read the Bones, Sign in Blood. There's so many things that demand life.
It's going to go down to 1 here.
Woohoo!
Draws a card, copy of Underworld Connections. That comes into play. That'll be a Connections.
And now, I mean, he's just dead on board now.
Yeah. And that's going to do it. The winner of this match, my friends, is Jared Boettcher 9-1 with Black Blue Devotion, defeating Cody Shoemaker, playing Black White mid-range. And this means, Patrick, I believe number 13 on our Season 3 leaderboard will be the #1 overall seed.
That seems very likely. I mean, I would be